Richard Bale here. I was surprised here. Not only did I get the illustrious Keri Henson here, since I've been here, it's been an interesting navigation in Alaska. Our counties and the schools weren't tied together as much. We received some funding from the counties, but we couldn't do levies, we didn't bond. The treasurer didn't hold our checkbook and that sort of thing. So navigating the counties here has been an interesting experience for me. And I was fortunate enough that Keri has been super great in helping. And it looks like I haven't had an opportunity to meet Jim before, but we have the Douglas County Assessor team here to help us talk about kind of the relationship between the assessor and the county and the school district. How many Douglas school districts do we have here? I know, yeah.
So one of the things we've been doing, Keri and I have been going around to all the various taxing districts to meet the people and kind of go through the process. It's a fairly complicated process, as you probably all know, and got to get all the figures in the right boxes. So Keri's the guru, and we just have been trying to get together with Dave, and we appreciate the opportunity to come down here and kind of explain it in person. So if you've got any questions, you can put a face to the people you're talking to.
So I'm just handing out some basic things I'll refer to in my little talk. And you'll have to bear with me because public speaking is not my thing. I'm not sure how familiar everybody is with the levy process. I'm not sure if you've even dealt with it, other than hearing from the assessor's office once a year and wondering what the heck to do. So again, my name's Keri. I do the levies for Douglas County. I do the senior exemption program. I do the current use program, and miscellaneous other things. So the property tax is levied on the local level through the county. The assessor's office is responsible for actually setting assessments or value to property. I'm sure you guys you're all nodding, so I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Actually, can I ask, how do you guys actually go to the sites? Do you do it on a mathematical formula? How do that was something I've always, because I think is it different by county too, how it's all handled?
No, it's pretty much the same throughout the county, but we used to be Chelan County used to be on 4 years. Douglas County was on 2. A number of counties were on. We were the only county in the state that did it biannually. And basically we did East Wenatchee, then we did from Fancher Heights all the way to Cooley Dam. And the state legislature here a couple of years ago mandated that everybody go to annual assessments. So what we've done is we've divided the Douglas County into 6 areas, 6 inspection areas, where we physically go out and inspect 1/6 of the property every year. Plus we look at all newly constructed property that's finished as of August 1st.
Every year.
Every year. So we pick up the new construction, which is a bonus for these people and for the county. So the more new construction we have, the better off we are. And then the rest of the county, we update statistically. We look at all the sales, but we're looking at everything statistically too. So we look at the sales of all the properties throughout the county. And we have the county divided up into various areas. We don't value a property in Mansfield, for example, based on what Fancher Heights is doing. Same thing with Rock Island is a different neighborhood than the lower part of Wenatchee. So we break the county up into different areas.
Thank you.
So we set our assessments or our values, and we then balance those and send those over to the treasurer's office, along with a levy rate. A levy rate is calculated per taxing district. So there can be 10, 15, 20, I know in some of the bigger counties even more, taxing districts per area. That's called a tax code area. So like let's say East Wenatchee, they're going to have their hospital district, they're going to have their fire district, or I'm sorry, East Wenatchee doesn't have a hospital district. Fire district, parks districts, port districts, school districts,
Fire.
Fire, yeah.
Fire
2, which is a big one. So basically it's my responsibility to set that rate. For other taxing districts like the fire districts and stuff like that, there's 3 different factors into their limit and what they can levy for. With school districts, it's a little bit different, whereas the state, which is, I'm kind of going out of order here, the state authority, which is example 3 in there, the superintendent of public instruction, he sends me a limit of the absolute max that you school districts can levy for. So that's one part of my job that they kind of do for me. Let's see. It's kind of bouncing around here. I'm so sorry. When taxes are paid through the treasurer's office, then it's dispersed to the different taxing districts, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. So example 1 shows the breakdown of our taxing districts, the value set for each one, or the assessments, the levy rate, and the actual tax dollars. It's my job to develop this booklet with all of the information for every taxing district.
So if I could just, so the way it works is the budget from all you guys for all the taxing districts come into us, and we look at the total value of the property within all these concentric circles that drill down to one particular piece of property. And so we just divide all the levies into that value and out pops this number. So that's how we arrive at that number.
So generally,
Sounds easy.
It's not. That's why I have Keri.
So basically, a normal district, a normal taxing district like a fire district, they have to send me, when I send out my mass letters to all of you guys, they have to send me their budgets. They have to send me a levy certification, which allows me to levy for them, and a resolution stating how much they're going to increase from the previous year. A normal taxing district is only allowed 1% increase per year, and that's only if the implicit price deflator is under 1. If it's over 1, they get less. So it's kind of a give and take. The school district again varies because the levies are all voted on. So I don't make up the numbers from the previous year. You guys do, or the ESD does. So basically I have to take what is on your ballot measures and what passes, and I have to figure out what the levy rate should be in order for you guys to collect that money. Pretty basic, I guess.
I would like to inject something. Just we certify the levies here at the ESD, and it's an interesting thing to me. That's the beautiful little reports there, because we don't necessarily have a natural way for us to collect that data, like the webs, the state, the counties, they don't necessarily send it to us. So for us, we end up keeping up on it. So I find the whole certification process a little redundant almost, because what we really do is when you submit your F-195 and you put your levy data into that, we have a certification page in that. And that's really what we do, is we print that out, we send it back to you, and we say, are you sure this is your data?
Which is where I get the calls.
Which is where she gets, yes. And so the problem is if you say yes, and that number is wrong, we're just gonna say, you signed off on it, that's the number. And we've had a couple of scenarios. This is one of the reasons why I started getting more and more involved with the assessors and the treasurers, because I started realizing where that disconnect was. And so one of the things we've been trying to do more and more with the State Department's group here, Jason and Susie and the internal team, has been trying to get a better data off of the websites from the assessors and things, so we have a better feel for that. But the reality of it is when we certify it, what we're really doing is we're just saying, are you guys sure this is the right number? That's really what our certification process here at the ESD boils down to. So Anyways, just one of those things that when you see those levy numbers, you need to make sure that what we're submitting, what's being submitted to the assessor on your behalf, even certified by us, matches what's in your resolutions. So it was just kind of because and a lot of the other ESDs I talked to don't certify the levies. So I'm assuming it's because we have a lot of smaller districts here.
You guys
Bigger.
kind of take the brunt of it, whereas around the state and actually the United States, each school district usually does it themselves. So you guys are kind of lucky that you have the ESD here to kind of back you up.
And
on
have
all
such
that
attentive assessors.
So as he was referring to, the ESD does certify your levies to me. So I get the certification from them directly, and that's example 2. I just wanted you guys to see what it looked like so that you were familiar with it. Example 4, and it's not one from last year, it's one from this year, but it kind of gives you the idea. This is how I verify what you guys can and can't collect from the auditor's office in the elections. This has the election results. Tells me whether or not your guys' levies have passed or have not passed. So basically, that's where I get that. I kind of have to piece all the information together from everybody. The example number 5, I'm sorry, let me change that. The example number 6 is the part of the form that I send you guys every fall. And that's where you guys all worry and go, what, am I supposed to do something with this? Because I don't know. This is really just for your information to go along with your certifying, what Dave's certifying. This is our preliminary values. Just kind of helps you get a better idea of what you're looking at as far as your, what the value is in your taxing district. The second page of that is what a normal taxing district would have to send to me to certify levies. The state requires me to have some sort of certification or I cannot levy for anybody. So if I don't get this from ESD or from a taxing district, they don't get any money. So it's really important that the certifications come in and come in on time.
And we've had that happen.
Yeah.
But on the levy, the ESD's certifying based on what the district said, yeah, that's my number, send it in, so then they send it in, you're checking against what was on the ballot. That's what's legally you can levy, regardless of what the district said.
Well, but the thing is, the levy certification isn't as it sounds. It's not saying, hey, this is what they can levy for. The levy certification is actually just giving me the authorization to levy for you guys. If it doesn't come like that, I cannot levy. The state will not allow me to levy for you.
So even though we have voter approval for a 4-year period,
Right.
we have to do that annually in order for you to collect.
Yep, absolutely. And it's happened where a taxing district didn't get that in. And
And they had a voted on approved little bond and they didn't get the paperwork in.
it's out of my hands. The state says it's not the assessor's office responsibility to, in essence, track that certification down. If it's not to me by November 15th, I believe, I don't have to contact, I don't have to anything. I do, because I could not stand that on me. Yeah, I couldn't even imagine a school district not getting their money. That would just...
Well, I guess what I wish, in Chelan County at least, I send it to you guys send it in. I never get any confirmation from anybody that the county got it.
Yeah.
I'm assuming everybody did their job.
Yeah.
But I have to call, especially with my bond, because there was no way I was
Yes.
going to not get that
Yes.
collected. So I called to double check you did get my amount, right?
And that's
I wish
That's not a bad idea, just to verify
That's a pretty good idea, yeah.
that it's been received, because there's so many, with the school district, there's so many hands in it that it's always good to just double check, because although in Douglas County, I will call you. Believe me, because that's not what I want to happen at all. So basically, pretty simple mathematical equation to come up with the levy rate. It's the amount of money that you are to collect. And I kind of have a little example of one of my little worksheets, is example 5. And basically, the only thing it states in the top is the value for, we did the example of the Waterville School District. So down, if there was a bond or capital projects or transportation fund, I would fill out the information there and see of what was voted on and what was approved. But there wasn't one this year, so I went down to maintenance and operations levy. You take the amount that's going to be collected, and you divide it by the value, and then you times it by 1,000. There's your rate, and it's per 1,000. So when the assessor's office is talking about a rate, it's always per 1,000 of assessed value. So basically, and on here you can see I wrote the max levy authority that was given to me by the state. Can't go any higher than that. Doesn't say you'll ever get to that amount, but that's your max. And then I usually make a note for myself that how long each M&O or each bond or each, and I carry that every year so that I make sure that I don't miss something, because it's really easy to do. And where it differs from a regular taxing district, they can go up 1%, so the figures are a lot different. It's not quite as cut and dry as the school districts. Basically, that's kind of the gist of it. Do you guys have any questions? I mean, there's really not, it's pretty basic. Dave?
But one thing I'd like to, and I know every county also handles this differently, but for your counties, when they create their resolution, do you print verbatim what they put in their resolution? Do you have your own format and you pull the data off there? Do you know how the other because that's one of the things I get kind of inconsistent across the counties.
On the ballots?
Yeah, when you get the resolution from the school versus what goes on, because one of the conversations you hear about is like the argument over whether it should say like a renewal levy, what's the word? Like replacement levy versus and so my question is when a school district sends you their information, do you just automatically use your own format and just put the numbers in, or do you actually take their words verbatim?
Well, and that's kind of, that's where there's so many offices for the county that are they all kind of partake in some part. Well, the resolutions that you guys do go to the elections office or the auditor's office. They generally take what you have and they give it to the prosecuting attorney. They verify that it's correct, that the verbiage is correct. And then if they agree with it, it goes on. If they don't agree, it comes back. So from my understanding, and I am not an elections guru by any means, as long as it has either the rate or the total dollars, and those match up, and the year and the type, whether it's a bond, M&O, CAP projects, TVF, then it's good. And they'll kind of just take what you have and go with it. But if it's not, they'll return it to you, for sure. We've had some. But that's another thing where the school districts, I don't collect the resolutions for, which is strange, because for all other taxing districts, they have to give me specifically a resolution saying that they're going to levy and how much they're going to levy for and the increase from last year. So school districts are a lot different than all my other taxing districts. Kind of a little easier, I would say. But the ESD makes that possible too. They help a lot. So when you get the papers from me in the fall, don't fret. You can call me if you have any questions, but generally it's just for your information. You don't generally have to do anything with it. I'm just giving it to you just to give it to you. I'm not sure how Chelan County works and what they send, or if they even send anything in the fall.
I think their booklet like you have is on their website, and I just print it out every year so I kind of know where am I, what's my values.
Yeah. And in Douglas County, it's available on the website as well, the whole tax booklet. It generally doesn't come until after we get all of the levies together and all of the values together, and we roll to the treasurer's office. Generally, in January. Sometimes it goes a little longer. So the tax booklet usually isn't complete until probably February, mid-February, when we have to report to the state, to the Department of Revenue. But it's always available after that. Or you can call me. Anybody has any questions, I put my card on your packet. So if you have any questions, just feel free to call me. I'm always available, or if not, I will be. And I'll make sure your questions get answered, even if I don't know them. I'm very familiar with the Department of Revenue, and I like to, because I don't want to tell anybody wrong answers. So if I don't know it, I will find out. So, does anybody?
So the collection of this then goes over to the treasurer's office.
Uh-huh.
They're responsible for reconciling and making sure that all of those funds get collected.
Yes, and that brings up a good question. We send our assessments and the levy rates as a snapshot in time. So as of January 1st, this is what we have for your assessment, and this is what you have for your levy rate. Throughout the year, that's going to change with senior exemptions, because seniors don't pay for school tax. Department of Revenue exempt properties, just miscellaneous changes to the tax roll. So that means your district is going to get less than what we levied for. There's no way to avoid that. But generally, the treasurer's office, I think they do it monthly, but maybe it's, I'm not sure. But they disperse that money to you as they get it, because the tax payments come in April and October. So they'll disperse it to you as they get it. That brings us into a refund levy. And I know my people from Douglas County have heard recently, because we've had a couple where we've had to do refund levies. The state says that for any refund issued to a taxpayer, the district that's affected by that refund can then request a refund levy. Most counties don't track and do refund levies for your senior exemptions or that. I know Chelan County might do a couple. Douglas County, because we've always been so small and there's been such a minute number of changes, we generally don't do it either. But as of the recent years, we've had a couple changes to our tax roll that have been pretty significant, where we've had large taxpayers, let's say, protest their value. Well, we don't do those hearings until the following year when the tax is due. So they can be, if we don't get agreed with, then we can have a tax roll correction of up to, $20 million. There's no limit. So that means those taxing districts where that property lies are going to be $20 million short in what they're collecting. Not individually, but as a whole. So we've taken it upon ourselves to make sure we know those numbers, and we send them to you and say, hey, you need to ask for this because I don't want you guys to miss out on that money. And again, I'm not sure how Chelan County does it. Generally, it's at the request of the taxing district. But again, with the significant ones, I'm out there and I'm getting them out there because I don't want you guys to miss that much money. Because it can be huge, and if you go through the next year, there's no way to recoup it. It's gone.
I know these showed up on our levy certifications this last year, and I don't know where the number came from or who put it on there. It was handwritten in.
Yep.
The F 195, and it showed as a refund as a negative, but yet it was increasing the total, right?
Right,
So
right.
it was really confusing.
And that's on the certification that the ESD completed. That was just their way of putting it on there. Generally, is it Jason?
Yep.
Who I was doing? Okay.
Jason Susie.
So he requests the information from me on which taxing district has a refund levy. And so I made a little chart and I figured out how much each one of your districts was offset, or how do I?
Basically, you come up short.
Yeah.
And because, and it's generally on these large industrial properties, so we have a dispute with them. Sometimes they'll take us to the state board of tax appeals, and if we don't prevail, like Keri said, you get your money eventually, but it can create a significant tax or a cash flow issue for you guys.
Yeah.
And I think it was like $100,000,
Yeah.
So that's why you don't spend all your money. I mean, if you're budgeting for, if you're gonna get $100, spend 75, because there's always uncollectibles,
There's
there's
always
taxable
uncollectibles.
corrections, all those sort of things.
I was gonna say, I think, and was it Moses Lake? Was it that had the big one the other year? They had a really sizable one where they actually had, I don't know, did the company go out of business or something like that?
I think it was huge.
And it was a huge number, and
We were
so-
good for 2 million.
yeah, and so it was their option to go back, and so now you have to understand that what that'll do though is that basically takes that burden and spreads it against the remaining tax base.
Right.
So for Moses Lake, it was a political decision. If I do that, my dollar per thousand rate will jump, and I promised my constituency I wouldn't go above that. And they ended up sticking to it. Other districts, and a lot of times it's not anywhere near, at least what I've seen, it's not ever been that big. Other districts will actually just go and wave it in. Some will just ignore it as it didn't
Yeah.
exist. I'm not sure, but is it Okanagan that just automatically does it for you every year?
Yes.
So I don't know, somebody puts it on my certificate.
Yeah, no, but I think
Dee from
I think we're
Okanagan
trying
does it.
Just roll- I think she
she's
just-
one of my best
Yeah.
partners in crime, and we talk about everything
Yeah.
together. But she does do it, especially on the larger refunds that they've issued.
Well, and
It's
they had an issue this last 2 years with the fires. So they've lost a lot of value as a result of those
Yeah.
catastrophic fires, and so,
Their treasurer's office tracks it very carefully. Every refund given, every change in tax roll correction, because essentially they're the ones who know what's collected and what's not. I don't know.
Yeah, see, we don't
I
know.
don't have a clue. I don't have access to that. I'm just kind of going by what I'm told. So their treasurer's office tracks it very carefully, and the Department of Revenue says they can track it or they don't have to track it. And some of the treasurers take full advantage of that, and some don't track anything. So in Douglas County, unfortunately, it's not something that had been brought up before, so we didn't have a system in place. So I believe it was 3 years ago, we had a court mandated refund, and that's what started us on this process. Court mandated refunds have to, regardless of whether you ask for them or not, have to be included. Whereas different refunds from tax roll corrections or senior exemptions, they don't have to be. It's at your request. Did you have a question?
A different question, maybe. What types of entities are exempt from paying the property tax? Because we have a clinic in our area that decided they were going to go nonprofit.
Any nonprofit, any low-income home for aging, churches, public utility districts,
state
state
federal.
land, and this is a new one to us that we actually had to investigate. Any land that a school district owns for use for scholarships or actual use, like a playground, all those are exempt from property tax.
So
And
we had a parcel where a piece of wheatland where somebody had given it
to the school.
school. And
Well, they were giving it to the school. They were paying tax on it because nobody knew, what was being done with it. Essentially, the profits from farming the wheat that's on it went directly into a scholarship
so it
fund.
made it tax
So it made it tax exempt. So we then had to turn around and do a tax exempt
taxable
correction
correction.
for 3 years on that parcel. So there's just that's one thing that can change those tax roll corrections.
And it's a little school district, so
It
$5,000 or
helps.
$6,000 make
Yeah,
a little bit
it's
of
a big
money.
deal.
so.
Yeah.
Is there a point in time where you write off unpaid taxes? Like a period of years where you just finally,
There is,
That's-
the treasurer's office is mostly in charge of that. But they definitely consult with us, and they'll go, it's mostly manufactured homes because they're not foreclosable. Most counties will not foreclose on them. They'll threaten to strength, but they will not foreclose on it. Because what do you do with that mobile home after you foreclose on it? You're gonna set it in a lot somewhere.
Costs more money to get rid of it than it's worth, so.
After, I'm not sure what our treasurer, Nona, what she's decided, but generally, if it's like 8, 9, 10 years in arrears, she'll come to me and say, hey, what do you think? And we'll check it out. We will physically drive to that mobile. We'll see if anybody's there, see if anybody's lived there. And then they have to go to the commissioner's office and ask the county commissioners to let it go. And it doesn't
Usually
happen
we're
very
not talking
often.
big dollars.
No,
Yeah.
on the chart I get from Chelan that every year shows what's still outstanding from a tax year
Yeah.
is getting smaller, like $45.
Yeah, and as far as the homes and land go, after 3 years, they're foreclosed on. So it's a tax foreclosure, and they're put in an auction by the treasurer's office and sold. So there's no option of being 5, 6 years in arrears with that. It's done. So it's mostly with the mobile homes, manufactured homes. Does anybody else have any questions?
Well, I do, and Jim, this might be for you. I don't know if you've been following the McCleary debates and the levy swaps and all of this. Do you have any thoughts, or and if you don't want to, I don't want to put you on a political hot seat or anything, but I mean, with the conversation being almost like they're planning on removing the local levies and passing it up to the state level. Would you have any insights on that or thoughts on?
I don't. I kind of wish we'd have done this here in a couple weeks because I'm going to the assessors conference. We have one in June, and that's always a big topic of discussion as to where that's going. But yeah, the levy process, as you guys have all, I'm sure, experienced. Some communities are very forthcoming. Waterville's always been very generous with their, always supported their levy. Some other communities haven't been able to do that as much. You're talking about really changing the whole process. How that will shake out at the local level, I really don't know. But
It'll be interesting to
it'll be
see how it
interesting to
plays
see how
out.
it goes.
For sure.
One thing they did that impacts, as you mentioned, when all the budgets come into us, the money gets collected. It's just a matter of who pays, who writes the check. So they just recently increased the senior citizen exemption from $35,000 to $40,000.
Which is huge.
Which is a big jump. So that, we haven't sat down and figured out exactly how many new clients we have that are into that, but that just shifts the burden over to those that don't qualify. And, that may put a little strain on those that are voting for these levies. If you guys go out for money, it kind of puts a little bit more burden on some of the other people. So,
And
yeah.
I haven't seen a huge jump in the amount of the people with the income from 35 to 40,000. I haven't seen a real big jump in those, but any bit is going to take and spread amongst the other taxpayers. So it's going to make a difference. I just don't feel right now that it's going to be very big. Next year or in years to come, it may be when more people get familiar with the program and realize, hey, I can qualify for this. I think it'll make a big difference there. But I wanted to just go back to what Jim said as far as the whole tax program is truly a budget-based system. And the reason why I want to point this out is because we have taxing districts that are going out for lid lifts, which means they can lift their lid to their levies and collect more money. The problem with this is that each tax code area, so each group of taxing districts, is only allowed to collect a certain amount of money from the taxpayers. They're only allowed to go up to $5.90, regardless of where it's at. With all these taxing districts wanting more and more and more and more money and lifting, and the lid lifts are voted on, so the people think, oh, well, they just need more money, so we're gonna do it. The more taxing districts that raise that, and the more you guys raise your stuff, which I know needs to be done, we're nearing that limit. And if that's the case, then we start knocking people out of the chain. So you have highest priority taxing districts, your state, your county, your fire districts, your hospital districts, and then it goes down the order, and I don't know them all by heart, but I know like Parks District, they're last. So for example, in East Wenatchee, we've had the lid lift for the fire district. We've had other districts requesting more money, more of an increase, really close to that 590 limit. In that case, Parks District is going to be wiped out.
Is that 590 different by county, or is
No,
that's
it's
a
a
state
statewide.
statute?
State statute, and a lot of counties already do that. It's called pro-rationing. And they already have to take from a lot of their taxing districts.
So there's a pecking order, and, you get down to like the little cemetery districts and the park districts, they're at the bottom of the pecking
And
order.
it can essentially just wipe them out
So
completely.
if values are continuing to go up, and we haven't crunched the numbers, but there's going to be a pretty significant jump, I would assume, in the whole valley, but, the numbers we're looking at in East Wenatchee, we're probably going up another 6 or 8%, 6%. I mean, don't quote me or run to the newspaper with that one, but it's taking, and you see those articles come out in the Wenatchee World or on the radio every now and then that, Pacific Appraisal Associates will come out every now and then. They'll have an article about the inventory and how values are going up. So as the total value continues to go up, we're okay, because
The levy rates are going to come
the
down.
levy rate comes down a little bit, so as we're going up and as we're adding, depending on what taxing districts, where you put in a $50 million server farm, or, a big fruit warehouse, or a big housing development, that helps keep that spread. But if we take a big dive, if we go back to the 2008, 9, 10, if we drop 25% in value on the houses, that squishes that.
So your rates are going to go.
And that really doesn't affect you guys, but it affects the thinking. So if you have a parks department, or, who else is at the bottom
Cemetery,
of it? A
parks.
cemetery district or somebody
We
like
don't
that
have
that
any
wants to
with
do a big,
transit.
that wants to do a big capital project, they just need to be aware of where that margin is.
Yeah. And East Wenatchee is the only area in our county that's even close to that. And we've really stayed in contact with East Wenatchee and trying to make sure that doesn't get crossed.
So you said there's a pecking order? So how do we know what that, are they usually posted, is it somewhere in the law?
It is a
It's in state.
Department of Revenue assigned pecking order. It
Statewide?
doesn't, it's statewide, it doesn't change. I wish I had a copy, I didn't think to bring it, my apologies.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't realize that.
yeah. And that's where some of the voters, not many, some of them know this. And so when you go out for your bonds or your capital projects, it's just good to be aware if you're getting close to that. And again, you can call me anytime, and I'd be more than happy to discuss it with you, but most of us don't have anything.
So how would it work though, if in November, everybody's certifying stuff to the county? And then the county looks and says, holy crap, we just went over the limit. And you've only got a very short time before you start taxing people in the new tax year. So then do they notify you then, like, even though you passed this levy and everything's hunky-dory, you're suddenly not going to?
Yep, just like that.
Good.
Just in that last minute, I would call you and say, I'm sorry, it's out of my hands, but you've been pro-rationed and there's nothing, you won't be collecting, or you'll be collecting a smaller amount.
Right.
So I can squeeze in whatever I can squeeze in, but generally the smaller one's just gonna wipe them out.
And that's one reason that we have tried to meet with all the taxing districts in order to sort of
So they know
educate
this.
them. Because a lot, it's a complicated system, and a lot of people don't get it. The public really doesn't get it. The one thing that I've noticed in my tenure is they just don't understand that it's a budget-based system, and that the money is going to be collected regardless. It's just a matter, my job is to, as fairly and as equitably as we can, divvy up the piece of cake.
But we always just worry about what the taxpayers can tolerate. And so, if, my fire district and me, and we're all working together, small town, we're saying, let's all get this stuff passed. It doesn't really matter if we're all for it.
Yeah.
If we've exceeded it with all the other taxing districts, it doesn't matter if we're for it.
And it depends, like half of your taxing district can be just fine, and there could be a little area that lies within a different tax code area that can be affected. So then that little area is not going to collect from a certain district. I mean, because a tax code area can have, I don't even know how to explain it.
It can have a whole.
It can have, one part of Eastmont can have 6 different districts inside of it.
We have city limits and then outside.
Yeah,
Different
and
taxes for.
then, yeah, and then you have where fire districts overlap and go into county and town. Or, you know, hospital districts cover just a little portion of this area. Or, so there's tax code areas all over the place and there's thousands of them. Literally thousands
So it's only if you exceed the 590 in that tax.
in that
area.
tax code area. Yeah.
So how does that play into the maximum levy authority? Or does it?
That goes out the window.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Basically, that's just saying this is as high as you can go. Doesn't mean you're
So it
gonna get
doesn't
it.
play into any of the calculations for.
No. Just says, if you guys come to me and say, hey, we want, you know, 997,000. Nope, can't do it.
That's by district.
That's by district.
So, does that count bonds, or is this just for your M&O?
It
This is-
is just for your M&O.
Just your M&O, the
Yeah,
590
it's
limit?
not, yep,
Okay.
it's not your bond.
So it's
No,
not
wait a
your
minute.
capital projects, and does it count all of your levies? or-
She's talking about the 590 cap.
The 590
590.
cap includes your M&O. It does not include your capital projects or your bonds.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Because generally the bonds are like you're paying them back. So you already have that funding. So we can't include that.
Scott, did you have a question?
Nope, that was answered. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Definitely not an hour worth, though.
No, this is great. I mean, you did pretty well. No, it's we really appreciate you coming. And I, for one, I know Grant County really had a rough year this past couple of years with their assessor's office, and I don't know that how many people realize, but Douglas County did a really nice thing by opening themselves up to support them through this, and I know they really helped Melissa and her crew get on their feet down there. So
Yeah.
I, for one, really appreciated that because I know they were in a world of hurt record-wise down there. So.
I know it sounds off the top, it sounds like just easy peasy, but there's so many little arms, and if you're not familiar with it, it's really tough. And Melissa there from Grant County kind of got put into a position where she just needed some help. So I was happy to help. Just like I'm happy to help any of you, even if you're not in Douglas County, feel free to call me. I can give you my opinion. I can help you out. So,
Well, and if you call me, I'll just call her. So.
yeah, that's what it boils down to. So, anytime.
Any other questions?
Now.
Thank you.
By the way, you did a great job.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys. You bet. Good time.
Yeah. Want to take a few minutes? Sally just disappeared on me, and I told her when this was over she had to present. So she just has a few to go kind of over important dates, upcoming dates and things, and then after that we're a wrap. So yeah. So if anybody wants to use the restroom, grab another glass of water or anything. There's more snacks. Easy.
I do have one, last thing.
I didn't know. I didn't know.
That's interesting.